Thanks for joining us for month 2 of the Peppermint and Pine sew along for the block of the month. And this month we are making these snowmen. Now these are the futziest of the blocks, but they're so cute with those little hearts and arms pieced in. And the fabrics are adorable to give these little snowmen interest. So go ahead and stay tuned and we'll walk you through how to put this row together step by step. Here we go. We're going to jump right into the tall snowman. You're going to be making 4 of those this month for month 2 for our snowman banner. There's a lot of piecing in this block, but it is oh so worth it because it's so cute. You're going to want to use your starch pen and glue for this process because you've got some little 3/4 inch pieces. Sorry about that, but oh, it's so worth it. And they go together step by step. So we're going to make this block together. We're going to start by making 1 block, then we'll go through once we work the bugs out, and then you can make the next 3 blocks. First thing we want to do is we want to sew T to the top of J. Okay, we're going to press towards T. We've got T and J stitched together. Now we're going to go in and we're going to do a flipped corner and snowball this block so that we have a nice round head for our snowman and not a blocky square. So let's go in and do that. You guys know how to do that by now. There we go. We've got our little snowballed head. Isn't that just cute? Worth those little tiny squares. Now we're going to go ahead and stitch A on each side and we're going to press towards A. What I didn't tell you was we press towards these little flipped corners. There you go. We've got our top of our tall snowman done. Now it's time to make 2 arm sections. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to put L and R and M. And we're going to repeat that to make 2 arm sections for our snowman that's going to be holding our little heart. Isn't that going to be so cute? Hang in there, guys. This gets futzy, but it's so worth it. And then we want to press away from R. So we want to press to the cream on both of those. All right, there you go. We've got our 2 arm sections. We're not in any race to put these blocks together, so we're just going to take our time, do the best we can, and remember it's fabric, and there's give, and there's ease, and it's all going to work out. So now we want to make our little heart unit. This is where it's going to get really futzy, and you're definitely going to want to use your glue and starch pen. Well, before that, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. We don't want to put our hearts yet. We aren't making our hearts yet. We've got to snowball these corners again so that we've got a nice round snowman middle body. So we're going to use E, and we're going to snowball off these corners. One this way and one this way. It's important to follow the orientation because if you don't, you could have them both going, you could have them opposite and then your arms won't line up. So we don't want that. So the taller piece goes on top and we're snowballing the outside corners. All right. You can see that the taller piece is on top and I've snowballed my outer corners. And now we're going to move on to the middle section, which is the heart. We're going to work one side of the heart at a time so that we don't get confused. First thing we're going to do is one upper corner. This is P on the top of S. And we're going to do our flipped corner here and then we'll be back to use these other pieces. Again, we're just working on the left side of the heart. Okay, you can see that I've stitched that. It's hard to see my stitching on here, but I've stitched it. I have not pressed it yet because if you notice, your directions say that you need to press it towards the body of the heart, not towards the snowman. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to put it like this on our pressing mat and we're going to flip it over. We're not going to iron the snot out of it because it's all on the bias. We just want to give it a nice, easy press and starch it. Okay, now we're going to do a flipped corner on the other side using P on the upper left corner of S. And when we do this we're going to press intuitively. So, all right, there we go. And don't worry, you don't have 1/4 inch here. That's because we want our heart squared off a tiny bit. So that's good if you have less than 1/4 inch, okay? So now we want to take O and we want to stick it on here, and we want to stitch just like this from corner to corner, move it back. Now here we are, I've trimmed it. This side, we're going to press like this. We're going to do it like we did this corner, because we want our right side and our left side of our hearts to nest together, especially for these little pieces. We're going to get a much better finished product. Let's do that. There we go. So now let's take another S and another P, 2 P's and an O, and we're going to repeat the process, except this time we can press all of our seams out because we did our opposite on this half. So let's start with one upper corner because they overlap. Right, now let's stitch O on here. And again, we want O to go the opposite, so we're going to stitch here. Before I trim and press this one, I just wanted to show you diagonal to diagonal, and you can see my 3 little glue dots. And I glue in the seam allowance on these. They're so tiny. What if I got over in here? It doesn't matter. This is water-soluble glue. It just washes out with a dab of water. It doesn't stick. I mean, I can pull this apart to show you how it doesn't stick. It just sticks enough to hold it. So no worries there. All right, so I trimmed it, and now I'm gonna press it like this. All right, there we've got our 2 half hearts. Now, what we wanna do is we wanna stitch them together and press to the right. And the way we do that is these are pressed opposite. So look at, it should nest right in. This presses this way out, and these press in, and that will help so that your points line up and it reduces bulk in your seam. So now let's just stitch a 1/4 inch seam and press to the right. Okay, there we go. Look at that little cutie. All right, you guys should give yourself a hand. This is a lot of tiny piecing. This is the most challenging block in the entire quilt. It just gets easier from here. And even though this is a challenging block, and I said it gets easier from here, it does, but this wasn't a hard block. It's just a futzy block or unit. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to stitch N to the top and Q to the bottom, and we want to press away from the heart. So let's take care of that. Match them up the best you can. All right, I want to show you one more tip before I press these, and you can see this piece, N, N, is my true piece, right? There's no piecing. My edge is straight. So I put it on the top. I know a lot of people don't agree with that because then you've got all these seams that you're trying not to flip. But if you're using the starch pen, it reduces that. You don't get those flip seams. And that way I have the true edge to follow for my 1/4 inch. And I won't follow this little tiny bit that sticks out here. It just helps me keep this as true as I can. So now I'm gonna go press these out. And again, I talked about we don't have a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch here, and that's what I planned. I didn't want my heart to be super pointy. I want it to have the illusion of being round. So don't panic if yours are not a 1/4 inch. That's a good thing, right? Now the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and sew, let's see, we want to sew this chunk together. And in order to do that, we're going to sew this here, and we're going to sew this on each side. And we're going to take a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. This should line up pretty good. Mine does. Follow this. Again, I like this because this has the least amount of piecing. I'm going to put it on top because it's your truer piece for me. See how this edge especially sticks out a little bit? I can even that out when I'm adding this together, or when I'm stitching it together. So let's go stitch these on here. And then we are going to press these arm sections out away from the heart. All right, there we go. Look at how cute that is. Oh my goodness, I can't stand it. All right, now we want to stitch B on each side of this, and we want to press to B. We're getting there, folks. Okay, let's work on the bottom of our snowman. This snowman has 3 balls. All right, all we need to do with this is K, and these are F, and we want to snowball the corners. Doot, 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 doot. And these all press out. All of F press out, okay? All right, there we've got our bottom just about made. Now we want to take C and we want to stitch it on each side, and then we're going to press to C. So, all right, there you go. Look at that cutie. Now it's time to sew the head to the middle body and the bottom to the middle body. 1/4 inch seams. And look at that. You have got the most adorable heart-holding snowman you've ever seen. And if you ask me, it was worth the futziness. I think it's adorable. So take a break, grab a cup of coffee, grab some chocolate. You deserve it. Maybe take a nap. I don't know, but it's not that bad. I'm just making light of it. But anyway, now it's time to stitch 3 more. Our short snowman block. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our U, slide it over here a little bit, and we're going to stitch F on each upper corner of U. We're going to use the flip corner method in the directions. We're going to glue this down in the seam allowance, draw on our diagonal, stitch on it, and then cut and flip. And these press towards these little squares. All right, you can lay your ruler down, use a little square, lay your ruler down with the 1/4 inch mark on your seam, but on these little, and rotary cut it, but on these little pieces, I just like to use my scissors. I can eyeball that good enough for this. It's pretty quick. They're just a little snip. Okay, like we talked about earlier, we're going to take this over and we're going to press this, and each one of these is going to press out. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and stitch our face together. So we want to put CC under our hat, and then we're going to put our scarf Z under that. And now we're going to go stitch. We're going to stitch this to this, and we're going to stitch this to this, and both of these are going to press away from C. Okay, now we want to take H and we want to stitch H to each side. Now it's important when we press these, again, the intuitive pressing would be stitch it and press this out. But if we do that, we won't have nesting seams later on when we're adding the body. So it's really important to follow the pressing directions, stitch these on each side, and press towards the center. So this is where the starch pin comes in particularly handy, because as we know, if we press this way, this is the path of least resistance. It's going to press nice. There's no seams. But we're pressing towards the center, and there's seam, seam, seam. So if we use the starch pin, that helps get it flat. The other thing is, it helps when I use the starch pin and it gets my seams flatter, it helps preventing flipped seams when I'm running it through my machine and my machine wants to take this seam and flip it. I hope you understand what I'm saying, but it reduces that. Okay, so now we've got our head. Now it's time to move on to our body. We have another little tiny futzy piece, probably the futziest of all. And we are going to take our X and we're going to take DD. And what we want to do is we want to place this down here and we want to draw on our diagonal and sew our seam. So I'm placing this because this is kind of a bigger scatter. I'm placing this so that the print doesn't get trimmed off. The solid gets trimmed off, and then I can have a little bit of that at the end of my scarf. So let's go ahead and do our little flipped corner here. All right, now we're going to take our AA piece. And our AA, notice it's not quite a square. It only fits one way, so that helps us. Let's put that like that. And then we're going to take our BB and we are going to stitch it to the other side. Now these will press out, okay? And the reason we do that is so that right here, when we want to get a nice even, we're gonna have 1/4 inch. seam where our scarf goes down, we want that to match exactly. So if we press out and we press those in, that's going to happen naturally. Okay, now let's finish up our body part and let's stitch V to the bottom. So don't get overzealous. You don't want to take an extra step here and stitch this down, because once we get this stitched, we're going to snowball these corners. Otherwise, we'll have a blocky snowman, and we don't want that. All right, now we want to do our snowball corners, our flipped corners, and put eye on each corner of this. We want to grab 4 eye, and we're going to do our flipped corner method and stitch this on every corner, snowballing this body. So boop, 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 boop. All right, now we have snowballed our body, and now we don't have quite as blocky of a snowman. Now he looks a little rounder. So we are gonna wanna go ahead and finish this block up. We have 2 more seams. We're gonna wanna stitch G to the top, and we're gonna wanna stitch top of the head, and we're gonna wanna stitch the body to the bottom of the head. Now look at, this should nest for you because of our pressing. So get that nested right in there. That way you've got a nice scarf, and then use that as your reference point to stitch your body to your head. Now we've got this stitched together, and you can see how nicely, because we nested those, they just pop right in, and your scarf is, you know, just nice and straight, and you don't have a little jig or a jag there. Also, this is a great place to check a seam allowance. Look at, you can see that this cut piece is slightly shorter than this. That means I'm taking too scant here. That means I need to reduce my scant a tiny bit. Am I gonna worry about it? Heck no, it's barely off. The great thing about fabric is you can stretch it a little bit, you can ease it a little bit, and it'll be fine in the finished block. So if this happened to you, don't lose any sleep over it. It does not matter. We'll get it all figured out when we go to put our top together, or this row together. So there you go. Now you wanna go ahead and do this 2 more times. You can chain stitch those now that you've got the method down, and make 2 more short snowmen for a total of 3. All right, now it's time to stitch these together. So how we're gonna do that is we are going to stitch a tall snowman on each side of a short snowman, and we're gonna repeat to make 2 of these units. Okay, so we're gonna repeat this and do this twice. All right, notice how we've got 2 spots that nest right in. Can you see that? The seams are going opposite direction. I love that. Make sure you follow those. I've got these 2 units stitched, and now I want to go ahead and press these towards the tall snowmen. Okay, we've got those pressed towards our tall snowmen. Now what we want to do is we want to take W, and we want to stitch W on each side. Let's move this over so you can see each side of our remaining short snowman. So let's do that, and let's press to W. Oh, this is so cute. Okay, now we want to stitch our previous unit, 1 of each, doesn't matter which one, they're both identical, to each side of this center short snowman, and we want to press towards W. All right, here you can see we've got our long strip of snowmen. Now what we want to do is take our last 2 W and stitch 1 on each end and press to W. All right, we've got one last step to finish this row, and that is to stitch Y on the top and bottom of this row. And we're going to go ahead and match our centers and stitch this to the top and bottom of this row, and then we'll be back to show our finished row. Way to go, guys. All right, here we are. We've got our snowman row put together. We will do our underneath banner in another step because this was a lot this month. We've got our snowman row done. This is the most complicated and futzy row of this entire sew along. So you guys did it. Give yourselves a hand. Great job. Now we'll meet back here for month 3.